Yeah, so here we are again with another stupid, dumbass feminist hashtag that has garnered a great deal of attention. And obviously, you can tell by the title of this video, I'm talking about masculinity so fragile. So, from what I can gather about this hashtag, it's a bunch of feminists talking about how fragile toxic masculinity is. However, if you study the topic of toxic masculinity, you'll come to one of two conclusions. One, it's almost indistinguishable what the differences are between toxic masculinity and healthy masculinity is when it comes out of a feminist's mouth because you don't have any criteria other than everything that's bad about humanity is toxic masculinity. Or you'll come to the second conclusion that toxic masculinity is actually just insecure men who don't know what masculinity is, and feminists have slapped the title onto that in order to demonize men, like they usually do. Now, of course, you're gonna probably hear that not all feminists are bullshit. It's feminists who came up with the idea of toxic masculinity, and it's feminists who are propagating it. Sorry, toxic masculinity is the complete fault of feminists and feminism. So if you're a feminist and you're like, I'm not all for that gender bashing, I'm sorry. It's feminist ideology. Eat what eat. Just become an egalitarian, wipe your hands clean of that bullshit. Let's continue with the video. So like I said, that's what the masculinity so fragile hashtag was, well, supposedly supposed to be about. Calling out all of the bad things that toxic masculinity does to harm young men. But, as I just said a couple seconds ago, the real issue of toxic masculinity is it's not masculinity, it's just insecurity. It's just insecurity. That's all it is. All the things that they call toxic masculinity is just young men who don't know how to be men are acting out because they don't understand what the concept of being masculine is. A lot of young men grew up with single mothers. They grew up without their fathers being around or something bad happened to their dads. And they grew up without that male role model. So, the ideas of what they get from manhood is it's either really bad, and that's how you get all those little skinny, white knight, really effeminate men, or they are insecure and so they have to put out this image of being tough in order to get the ladies that they want. Because no matter what you say, I live in reality. The reality is, a lot of ladies react positively to guys who act like jackasses. This is the truth. And men do what works. So, that's why these guys are acting like that. All the dude bro guys who skip leg day and drink a bunch of beer, it gets them what they fucking want. And women are reinforcing that behavior because they're having sex with those guys. Ain't no real way around it. But it's not true masculinity. You know what I mean? It's not the masculinity that built society as we know it. You know, it's not the masculinity that builds houses, that builds trains and cars. It's not the masculinity who protects you late at night when you're scared and you hear a noise outside. It's not the masculinity that teaches you how to ride a bike. You know what I mean? Those kind of kind, nurturing, protective qualities that fathers have over their children. You know, like a real patriarchy. Of course, feminists despise patriarchy, but we have this society. In fact, feminists wouldn't even be able to talk as much shit as they do if it weren't for the patriarchy. How ironic is that? It was the patriarchy, the family unit, that was the foundation of society, that built us up to the greatness that America was, that even allowed the women to live such comfortable lives for them to get bored and create the feminist movement. That's truth. It's because of men. Men build almost everything. I mean, one thing I can credit to a woman at the top of my head is Kevlar, but I mean, for guns and bows and arrows and spears and buildings and architecture, and there's some great women architecture, architects too. I'm not saying that. What I am saying, the vast majority of the people who are actually building things are men. So it's, masculinity is a great thing, and it's really disheartening, for me anyway, to see it get bashed so often. The thing about masculinity being so fragile and why it struck such a nerve with a lot of people, there's lots of people on Twitter on both sides talking about it, is the fact that the whole man bashing thing is constant. Of course, specifically white, cis, heterosexual men get the most from social justice warriors, but a lot of the radical feminists just hate men in general, and that's one of the differences between social justice warriors and feminists, and that's a whole topic unto itself. But, feminists just don't like men. It's what it really is. And of course, I'm speaking in generalities. There's probably going to be some feminists somewhere saying, I know that's not real feminism. Listen, I didn't get this idea from nowhere. Which means if you're a feminist and you're seeing this, you, more than anybody else, honestly, should be calling that shit out. You, more than anybody else, should be saying that this is not what we stand for. But you don't. And you don't because the truth of the matter is, that is what you stand for. Feminism has this gigantic collective movement that I'm more convinced now than ever of trying to make men be women and women be men. Now, of course, this is obvious when you stop and think about it. This is what we're living in. You can see it in the white knights and the very effeminate young men and the very masculine young ladies who are all assertive and angry, and you can find both sides are goddamn miserable. I'll tell you one very interesting thing. You can see this in the feminists themselves. Notice that a lot of the feminists, the men that they're dating, oftentimes very soft-spoken, very effeminate young men. Oftentimes are like that. They lack assertive qualities. They're either really big, schlubby kind of guys, or very passive, or they're really skinny, passive individuals. And those are the guys that feminists are dating. Why? Because they want to have power in their relationship. They want to fight against the so-called patriarchy and fight against all of that. They want to be equal, but to a woman, an equal relationship is a relationship when she's in charge. That's what equal means to a lot of these feminists. Women are in charge. That's equality for them. It's not about us being balanced, of both having a say, both of us are doing things. No. Let's look at consent for a second. If you listen to the language of consent laws and consent, it sounds neutral, but really it's all about the man asking the woman for permission to do everything. Because women, they ain't going to be asking niggas to do shit, because they're the ones who have the prize, you know, the prize, the vagina. So that's just an example of what I'm saying here, you know, about the equality for feminists is really women in power. And a huge collective movement for feminism is trying to turn men into women. I'll give you another example. Whenever you hear feminists talk about toxic masculinity and that men can't express their emotions, it's absolutely absurd to most men, because I can express my emotions rather easily. So it's bullshit. But what they really mean is that men don't express their emotions like women. See, women express their emotions by talking. A lot of women are like, they don't talk with the intent to get your feedback. They talk with the intent to get you to listen, because they just want, a lot of ladies, they just want you to listen, unless they specifically ask for your opinion. If you're in a relationship and your girlfriend's talking a lot, she's just talking because that's how she deals with her emotions. She gets them all out. And that's not a bad thing. That's how women deal with it. The problem is that a lot of ladies don't understand men don't deal with their feelings like that. Men deal with their feelings by trying to find a solution, or by not talking to somebody, or by going and doing something. Be that be exercise, you go in your room and you play some video games for a couple of hours, or you go in your Lego set and you build something. That's how men are dealing with their feelings. They're thinking within themselves how to find a solution by doing something else. They might write something down, but it isn't always verbally expressive like women are, because we're different. We express ourselves differently. And a lot of feminists and women don't understand that concept, that we are different, that we think differently, and we express our emotions differently. And so a lot of feminists, when they're saying that men have damaged emotional literacy, or men can't express their emotions, what they're really saying is men don't act like women. Men aren't talking to women about the way they feel. Men might talk to other men about that, because men usually understand it, which is why I said earlier, it's absurd to say men don't deal with their feelings, because niggas talk to each other about the way they feel all the time, or they express their feelings differently than women do. And that's just the truth. So like I said, so the whole masculinity so fragile thing is really just another attempt. It's just another thing, not only just to bash masculinity, bash being a man, but more an attempt to get men to try to be more like women. I truly believe this, because what you'll notice is that it would be rather easy, and some people have to, I've done it myself too, to say that this is all just projection, and that really you can notice that it ain't really men who are reaching out for a lot of help. You might find the MRAs, you might find MGTOWs within other MGTOWs, but it's not really men who are calling for ban bossy, now is it? It's not really men who are participating in slut walks so they can feel comfortable about being called sluts. It's not really men who are trying to go around with the whole Free the Nipple campaign, you know? It's not really men who make Tumblrs about body positivity. It's not really men who are doing these things. Wanna know who is? You already know the answer. It's not really men who are complaining about skinny models, is it? See, now it'd be rather easy for me to say, look, it's actually women who need all of this different calling in our society, and that the whole masculinity so fragile thing is just projection. But like I said, I feel like it's a little more deeper than that, because this man bashing thing is constant. If this was its own little thing, if masculinity so fragile was just its own thing, and we didn't get that bullshit commercial from Angel Soft about Happy Father's Day, Mom, if this was isolated, I would just call it projection. But because this shit is constant, I really believe this is just another attempt for feminists to just reinforce that they want men to be and act like women. Because once again, you can see that it's really women who are getting a lot of different ad campaigns and a lot of different celebrities telling them that they're perfect and great. I mean, think about the whole like a girl thing. Like a girl is not an insult used for girls. It's an insult thrown at boys. And yet there's this whole campaign to make girls feel better about themselves. But again, like a girl is not an insult for girls. Like, you never tell a girl she does anything like a girl. It's stupid. The same way you never call a tiger, you know what I mean? Well, I mean you do, but it'd be a waste of time. You know, of course a tiger's a tiger. So yeah, that's what this whole masculinity so fragile thing is all about. And again, toxic masculinity isn't a thing. Masculinity and femininity are positive things. The only problem is you can get hyper masculine, you too much, and get hyper feminine. And too much of anything is a bad thing. But it being toxic, no. Because you'll never notice. There's no balance here when it comes to feminists. There is no toxic femininity. In fact, we can take it a step further. There really isn't even femininity. I would wager that a lot of young ladies are lost in our society because they don't have a concept of what it means to be a woman. I've said this numerous times. Even if masculinity is a bad thing, which it's not, but even if there was a bad standard for being a man, at least there is a standard. At least you can change it, make it different, evolve, do something. But when you're a lady and there's no concept of femininity, you're lost. All you got are your breasts and your boobs. Why do you think there's so many Instagram models showing their asses on Instagram? Or so many women being hypersexual? Because that's all they fucking got. They don't have a sense of identity within themselves. All they got is, I can see my breasts and my boobs. They give me power. It's something. I don't have a concept of being a woman, so I just got to use my lady parts. That's what that is. Women don't have a standard of being a woman. That's why I genuinely think they're probably lost, and why they feel like they have to bash masculinity so hard. Or at least some of these feminists. You know, it isn't just about trying to turn women into men by having women take the different roles and jobs of being a provider, and being the protector and all of that. It's that, what does it mean to be a woman? What does it mean to be a young lady? There's no standard. You can't even say that a young lady is a kept woman who reserves herself sexually. Because then you're either some religious bigot or zealot or whatever bullshit they come up with, or you're sexist because you don't say that about men. You can't even put standards on women anymore because that's oppressive or that's bad. Probably gonna have a whole video where I say you can't even have standards on women. I made a whole video series, a double standard of having standards, but that's, again, 2 different videos. But even then, that's another thing. The double standard of having standards I love that video series because it took me so long to make it. But it's a point to show that if you even say that a woman should do something, that it's bad. So it isn't just that women don't have a standard of femininity. If you even try to give them one, that's bad and that's oppressive. And that really just kind of works to women's detriment. Because again, they're lost souls. You know, they don't have a sense of identity or any goal to obtain. Whereas men, even if masculinity is toxic or bad, it's something that can be changed or adapted. At least you can be a bad man and then you can change to be a good man. But if you're just a lady, you're just lost. So really, it looks like, again, I'm judging on part of the whole masculinity so fragile thing is just a great deal of projection on some of these feminists and women's part because they don't have any concept of what being a woman is. Yeah, well, I think I said everything I needed to say in this video, man. I think I'm probably gonna have to make a more succinct video about the demonization of, well, men in general and masculinity, but I think this is a good place to stop. So, with that being said, man, I certainly hope you guys enjoyed today's video, and if you did, man, go ahead and click that like button. Go ahead and click that subscribe button. Comment in the comment box below, and as always, have a great day. I will see you cool cats soon. Adios.